Hello and welcome. My name is Evgeny Rusakov and you're watching TVP World, interview from Vilnius. On the 21st of June, famous Belarusian oppositionist Sergei Tikhanovsky and other 13 political prisoners were released from prison. This became possible after US President Donald Trump's special envoy Kellogg's visit to Minsk. To discuss this, we are joined today by the human rights activist and head of the Belarus Foundation, Andrej Stryzhak. Andrej, glad to see you with us here today, sir. Thank you for joining. Thank you for coming. First of all, what's your take on this recent news about Lukashenko releasing Sergei Tikhanovsky and 13 other political prisoners?
You know, it was some incredible news because, from my point of view, liberation of Sergei Tikhanovsky personal, it's a very important thing for us because it's one of the biggest enemy of Lukashenko in 2020. Lukashenko take to jail Sergei first. It was before another political prisoners and candidates, potential candidates in that election times, and I think that it's a big figure, and it's a good question what Lukashenko ask for this liberation.
My next question. You're reading my mind.
Yeah, I think that Lukashenko wants to be much legitimized in the eyes of Westerns, at general of USA, because Lukashenko it's part of such called
axis of evil.
Yeah, you know, it's a person. It's a very specific person. Dictators club, and you know, Donald Trump very moved of these borders of some possibilities of these persons in the whole world, and people from this dictators club very want to be much near to some possibilities of new U.S. administration.
Okay. And I think do you think they see those possibilities with new U.S. administration?
Yes. I think that main of what Lukashenko have done in this situation, it's a strong handshake with Kellogg.
Okay.
Because you know, it's not only for some a pretty movie or pretty photo. It's for some big question for European partners, for example, for why Lukashenko is in contact with Americans and don't contact in Europe with Europeans.
Do you think we could see any release of sanctions against Belarus?
It's a complicated question because sanctions we have at least we have three actors in this question, because one actor and the main actor, it's European Union, which is 27 countries which need to decide which sanctions they will take against Lukashenko, and we see that this liberation makes some problems in a consensus in the European Union. The last 18 package of sanctions was not taken a few days ago. I think that it's also because this situation is changing rapidly.
Okay.
And it's one of reason. And we will to see in the future if it's possible to make some new sanctions packet with such new reality in which Lukashenko trying to find a new ways to U.S. administration. And my point of view is that it's very important to understand what is with some eastern front of European Union. It's Lithuania and Poland, because in Lithuania we see such conditions that Lithuanian government trying to make possibility for takes some own sanctions.
Independent
steps, because we understand that for Lukashenko it's very important to send some signal to Americans for Americans to pressure on Lithuanians to abandon, to cancel those
sanctions against potassium.
Potassium fertilizers export, and it's very important for some economics of Lukashenko's regime.
That's his money, right?
Yeah, of course.
His money.
Of course.
What kind of political game is Alexander Lukashenko playing in this regard? Is he again trying to sit on what? On 2, 3, 4 chairs?
As I mentioned earlier, Lukashenko is a perfect guy in some possibility in these tactic games, and I think that he just looking in some possibilities to trading with some slaves with which he has, and I think that in this trading he trying to make some much independent position in this situation in which for 5 years he was cancelled from this big international games. Just remember in 2019, 2018, position of Lukashenko was much stronger.
Yes, it was.
In international relations. He trying to sell own some donor of regional security in Eastern Europe. But at the moment we see just only like satellite of Putin. And of course he tried to find some new possibility to return on this big table with big
players.
Yeah, and serious guys to ask about something for our own goods and to sell something. And we see that unfortunately this living goods, these slaves, these prisoners are very good selling in some situations.
You've mentioned Vladimir Putin. So here's my question. Do you think Lukashenko made this decision on releasing political prisoners on his own, or he had some talks with Putin before?
My point of view is that it's a very...
Do they coordinate this specific moment?
It's very comfortable if you are a big dictator and you have some smaller dictator.
Yeah, okay.
Because if you need something to say and you don't want to say it personal, you can just make this statement through a mouth of some small dictator or some clearness of some positions. And I think that, of course, it was coordinated between, but I think that Lukashenko trying to find some own possibilities in this situation. But of course, with Putin, it's in a strong and in a deep coordination, all this doing. And I think that it's one of the probably one of the trying of selling Minsk like
a future negotiations
platform, place. Yeah.
Okay.
Every time Lukashenko try to sell this position. In 2022, just remember the first trying of negotiation.
They had some negotiations between Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
So do you think West could possibly look at Minsk as a future platform for those negotiations?
It depends of cost. For example, if it's just one point in which Russians with Ukrainians can negotiate, I think that Westerns can say, okay, we can approve this place. But I see that for Ukrainians, it's very principle, do not negotiate in Minsk, because Ukrainian government recognize Lukashenko like co-aggressive.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's of course it's true. And for example, Turkey and Istanbul and Ankara, it's much better for Ukrainians because it's a much neutral country. And for Russians, it's also not so bad.
Okay, let's come back to, again, Tikhanovsky and his release. Do you think that Tikhanovsky's return could bring discord in the ranks of Belarusian opposition?
I think that it's one of the reasons for why Lukashenko liberate not Babarika, for example, or Kolesnikova, because I think that he understands it like old patriarch guy in dictator's eyes. It's some very good and probable scenario. But we see, and it's very good, that Tikhanovsky in the first interview says that my wife is the president, I'm a first gentleman. I don't want to fight on power between my own wife. But you know, it's so short time after liberation, just 1 week, and we understand that it's a very traumatized person for 5 years in very poor conditions in a jail, and you know. Nobody knows how long he can stay in such active position and such proactive position. Of course, it's a question about own body, own psychics, and
Exactly.
And we will to see.
Okay. So again, you've mentioned Kolesnikova, you've mentioned Babarika. Do you think that Lukashenko saved them for future bargains?
Yeah, it's a strong point. It's strong cards on the hands of dictator, and he understands that it's one of the biggest chains to something to trade with these persons. And I prognose that even we have in our prisons some Westerns we have on this moment. Until this time, Lukashenko can trying to find some new possibilities for all.
What if what happens when he runs out of all those, I don't know, important political prisoners? I just want to mention that all political prisoners are important, but for some reason we talk more about Maria Kolesnikova than some, I don't know, pensioner from Babruisk or from somewhere else, even though they're all important.
It's open question for us because we understand that chances of liberation of some ordinary people, it's much smaller than...
they are all equal. They are all equal to me.
Yeah. And you know, but it's not stopped our work in this direction. We're trying to find some possibilities for help for these people in this situation. And I see that it's an open question how Westerns, how Europeans, how Americans will track this situation when all such called VIP prisoners will be released, and what else? And you know, it's a complicated question because we see many historical experience, like for example in Iran or in some different countries in which people just sitting in jail for 10, for 20 years and nothing changes. I hope that Belarus, it's a country in the middle of Europe, and you know all processes are going between Belarus until Belarus, over Belarus, and every time Belarus it's in the focus because here it's a war in Ukraine, here it's questions of security of Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, and Baltic region, and I think that all these processes cannot stop generally at general. They will to be released and in the future time, but nobody knows how many pressure, how many diplomatic steps will be covered for going to this aim.
Okay, my last question briefly. Does the West have to negotiate with the regime and to do such kind of bargains, or because they obviously are bearing fruit? Other than, you know, not talking and just putting sanctions against Belarus and Lukashenko?
From my point of view, it will be some combined actions because we see that only negotiation from some poor position, it's not good way, and only pressure, it's too not good way. And combining of this situation, combining of these methods will be much better because we see that if you make a pressure, you can take for dictatorship some. It's not chance to be some white and clear. It's just to saying if you don't want much pressure than today, you need to make something to fix some small things, not a general, because we understand that it's a big way, it's a long way. First step, liberation of political prisoners. Second step, it's some amnesty and stopping of new repressions, and then. And we finished with some free elections. But we understand that many factors, Kremlin, war, and something so, it's very complicated to say in which time we meet with you in some studio of Minsk.
Talking about free elections.
Yeah, and talking about free elections.
Well, Andrej, thank you for joining us today, and hope to see you next time here in our studio.
See you.
Thank you. And I would like to remind our viewers that our guest for today was a human rights activist and head of the By Soul Foundation, Andrej Stryzhak. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us.